Hey everybody, and welcome to our brand spanking new baseball series presented by State Farm right here on opensports.com. I'm Sid Rosenberg. We've got 3 hard-hitting shows per week for you right here at opensports.com. On Mondays, we do insurance runs. In fact, a couple of days ago, we had SI's John Heyman, and today it's Fantasy Whiplash as we venture into fantasy land. Joining me today on the State Farm two-way hotline is the one and only injury expert, one of the all-time baseball greats, Will Carroll of Baseball Prospectus. Will, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Sid. Hard to follow that up. I think you'd probably include guys like DiMaggio, Mantle, Ted Williams as baseball great, but it's great to be with you. Well,
I think you're selling yourself short. Those guys don't hold a candle to you, Will. How about that? All right, let's start out here with one of the biggest names who's burning fantasy owners so far this season. It is Big Papi. David Ortiz has not yet homered in 119 at-bats. His production down between 2008 and 2009. A bit of a trend here, Will. So is it the wrist? Is it the knee? Is it his age? Does he miss Manny Ramirez? What do you think is wrong with David Ortiz?
I don't think it's Manny Ramirez, and he'd be missing him anyway. I think what it is psychological. He's still thinking about that wrist. And a lot of times when you think about it, Yogi Berra famously said you can't think and hit. I think that's bothering him. He's complained a little bit of shoulder problems too, and I think that's also factoring in. And then again, it's age. He's always had those so-called old player skills, and now you're adding that into some age. We saw it happen with Travis Hafner last year. We've seen it happen with guys like, and I don't think Red Sox fans want to hear the name Mo Vaughn again, but we do have to think about that. I think he can come back. I think he's going to end up with something like a Willie Stargell end of his career where he's a good, not great guy, very popular with the fans and his teammates. I do expect he's going to come back. It wasn't too long ago, I think it was 2002, maybe 2003, where he had a terrible start to the season, didn't get any home runs until I think the middle of May, and then ended up with about 30 for the season. So I still think he can reward some fantasy owners, especially if they can steal him cheap.
All right, fair enough. He certainly has a lot of guys around him playing well, from Ellsbury to Pedroia to Bay to J.D. Drew to Mike Lowell. So plenty of guys in that lineup producing for the Boston Red Sox. Will Carroll, 2 more big bats coming off hip surgery just recently. Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees, Chase Utley of Philadelphia during the offseason. Now, A-Rod homered in his first at-bat last Friday, a 3-run shot. Since then, hasn't done much. He's gone 2 for 13 since. What do you think happens here in the very near future with Alex Rodriguez?
It's tough to tell. We don't know anymore from one swing of the bat, which put a ball in the seats, for 13 at-bats. Small sample size. We have to let him play out. I think over the course of the season, we're going to get typical Alex Rodriguez numbers. When you look at what Utley has done, when you look at what Mike Lowell of the Red Sox has done, and what Alex Gordon will do about a month from now, I think we're going to find out we've got some pretty good successes from this hip labrum surgery. Be interesting to see how it goes, but I wouldn't read too much into either the home run or the 2 for 13 for Rodriguez.
And you mentioned with Utley really has not missed a beat after his offseason hip surgery. Some good power numbers and doing a nice job for the Phillies.
Yeah, you're seeing absolutely no problems with him or Lowell. Both of them coming back on opening day, both of them looking good at bat and in the field. This is really one of the more amazing turns. It's the change from GE. Of all things, General Electric changed the magnet in their MRI machines, which allowed a new diagnostic tool. We're finding these hip tears now, and they'd been diagnosed just a year ago as groin strains.
How about that? Will Carroll joining us here on Fantasy Whiplash, brought to you by State Farm, right here on opensports.com. Vladimir Guerrero, Will, another guy on the DL and possibly fading away. What do you think is left in the 34-year-old Vlad tank?
Well, this is going to be an interesting one, and I'm glad we're on video because I can talk about that pectoral muscle and point, because it's right here. When we think of pectoral muscles, we think of the chest. We don't think up here. If I pointed here, Sid, you'd probably say, oh, shoulder, right? No, That's where the pectoral muscle attaches, and that's where the tear is for Vladimir Guerrero. So you can see why that's going to be a problem for him in the field. At bat, not so much. I think he'll be fine there, but I do think he's going to have to be a DH, and that's one more strike against the flexibility that the Angels just don't have. Now, it wasn't too long ago when they were winning World Series because they had that flexibility. They had a guy like Sean Figgins that they could move around. They had a couple catchers that they could sub in and out. They had guys that they would shift all over the field, and now they really can't do that. They're very, very limited in what they can do as far as Mike Scioscia and the lineup. And I think Guerrero, down the line, I think we're starting to see, we talked about old player skills. He's an old player. When he runs, he just doesn't look comfortable, and that's a little gift from Montreal and their old turf in the Big O.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, let's take this now to the mound, Will Carroll. We're talking about offensive players up to this point. Chris Carpenter, St. Louis Cardinals, Hiroki Kuroda, Los Angeles Dodgers, both effective at the start of the season, but both now on the DL very early on here. What do you expect from the former Cy Young Award winner Chris Carpenter before the end of the year?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Carpenter looks like he's coming back very, very soon. The question is, where is he going to come back? Is it going to be in the starting rotation or in the bullpen? Tony La Russa not comfortable with that bullpen. He got rid of those two rookies as closer and went with, of all people, Ryan Franklin. Gone with something of a committee there. There's been discussion of, rather than putting him directly into the rotation, having him do some rehab starts, but putting him in the bullpen. I don't know. They did it with Wainwright a couple of years ago. The oblique shouldn't be a problem, but I'm not sure that's the best use of Carpenter. If they do that, I think that's an indication they don't think they can keep Carpenter healthy in the rotation, rather than so much Tony La Russa playing fast and loose with his kind of bullpen games.
Agreed. Now, what about Kuroda out in Los Angeles with the Dodgers?
Kuroda's an interesting story because, we were told at first that, it's just an oblique strain. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. Everything will be fine. Now I'm hearing we're not even going to see him in a rehab assignment before June 1st. So this is extending out. Did he start up too soon? Was this far more significant than we thought? Are they just being conservative with him because everything's going so well? Tough to tell. Guys, especially pitchers that are coming back from opposite side oblique strains, tend to come back well once they come back, don't tend to recur. We still don't know how to stop these injuries from happening, but we're getting much better because of all the practice with these oblique strains.
All right, one more, Will, before we get out of here. I need a candidate right now for next week's OpenSports.com Fantasy Sleeper of the Week. Who do you got?
I really think that John Lester, it's hard to call him a sleeper, but with his stats, some people are starting to nap on him. When you look at all the secondary stats behind him, he's not pitching that much differently than last year's phenomenal breakout season. I think the Red Sox will start to come around once they get everybody healthy, once they get everything back together, and I think Lester will be a much better pitcher down the line. I think he's just been a little bit unlucky so far.
Well, he's on my fantasy baseball team, and what I saw against Tampa Bay on national television on Saturday had very little to do with bad luck and more to do with Evan Longoria hitting balls out of Fenway Park.
Yeah, he'll make a lot of people look bad, Sid.
That's fair. That's the one guy that will. Maybe at this point the best third baseman in baseball with Alex's injury, and David Wright off the slow start, at least in the power numbers. Okay, listen, if you want to Twitter Will Carroll, you can do that today also at twitter.com. How many followers do you have right now, Will?
I haven't even looked. It's fun because you can interact with everybody. They can ask questions. It's almost like having a chat every day. Of course, I'll be doing a chat tomorrow at baseballprospectus.com as well.
Oh, fantastic. So he's at twitter.com/injury expert. And like Will just said, you can catch him every day on baseballprospectus.com with the big chat coming up tomorrow. That's going to do it for today, Will. It is great to get the show off the ground and great to have you as my very first guest. Thank you so much, pal.
That's it.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Whiplash, presented again by State Farm. Make sure you come back on Friday as we go down on the farm for our very first minor league report. Until then, I'm Sid Rosenberg. We'll see you next time.
The future of sports on the web is open.